Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Adora Yin, and you probably clicked on this video because you're going to be starting your IGCSEs this coming school year. So today I'm just going to be talking about what you should do before you start your IGCSEs and the things you should know. So over here on my trusty iPad, I've compiled 6 of my tips for success. And as you can see on my channel, I've already done so many videos on IGCSE, but I completed my IGCSEs last year. I took 11 of them, and those courses were English language, English literature, Chinese, German, international maths, additional maths, all 4 sciences, so bio, chem, physics, and computer science, and also economics. And in those 11 courses, I got an A star in all of them in my finals. So yeah, those are my credentials. And yeah, today I'm just going to talk about what you can do before you get started. But since you're starting your IGCSE year, you're also starting high school. So you can expect things to be a little bit different. There's probably going to be more expectations set on you. It's a bit more serious than middle school and whatever program you were doing at your school before IGCSE. But in the grand scheme of things, it's still quite chill. And yeah, I just want to not stress you guys out too much in this video. So I'll just walk you through it. But my first tip is that before you get started, you should understand the structure of your IGCSEs. So I've made a bunch of videos on subject specific IGCSE courses, and you can watch those for more information if you're taking those courses. But basically in every single video, I always start it off by saying that you have to download the syllabus. And you can find this on the Cambridge website. And in the syllabus, it basically lists out everything you need to know, everything relevant to the course. It's got the subject contents, obviously, as well as the exam papers, the requirements. For science subjects, is also especially useful because it tells you the exact apparatus or reagents and stuff that you need to know and that you will probably encounter throughout the course. So basically, you should download this first so you just get a scope of what you're getting yourself into with the course. And by doing so, you should familiarize yourself with the different assessment formats, because for IGCSE, ultimately what your grade is calculated from is the final exam. And for different subjects, there's different amount of papers. So for the natural sciences, it's 3. For the other subjects, also just 2 or 3. Essentially. And you should figure out what each paper is about and what you're gonna get quizzed on. And that way throughout the year, you'll start recognizing which skills you're building that will help you in which specific paper. And this will also help you further down the line because you can make notes correlating to that specific paper. And when you do take that final exam or your end of year mock exams in that paper, you'll have all the notes relevant to it. So it becomes a lot easier, and that's why I recommend doing this at the start of the year so you get your mind cleared, because at the start of the year, I didn't really know what I was doing. I was kind of just compiling everything, and I didn't really know what was relevant and what wasn't. And turns out I did waste a lot of time collecting information that just was not relevant and would not help me in the final exam. And yeah, this is also one key thing that's different about the IGCSE curriculum as a whole. It's just that it's entirely based on your final exam. Your grades are calculated based off the different weightings of the different papers. And other curriculum styles, they might have grades calculated based off coursework and class activity and unit tests and stuff. But in the end, IGCSE, it's all based on your final grades. So you should do everything you can throughout the school year to help you achieve the best that you can do. And next, my second tip is to create Google Drive folders for every single subject. And yes, I created 11 different ones. So basically, I had this big overarching IGCSE folder, and then within that, I would put IGCSE languages, IGCSE humanities, IGCSE sciences, and IGCSE maths. And then within those subcategories, then I would create another folder for each specific subject. And in this folder, you should put every single thing related to your course that will be useful throughout the school year. So I'm talking the classroom assignments that you'll do, all the notes that you'll have collected, and the random bits and bobs that your teachers give you, because you never know when something is going to become useful in the future. And it also makes it extremely easy to find when you start doing tests and unit tests, because everything is just compiled in one place and it becomes so much easier to find. Another additional tip is to name each document in that folder, starting with the number of the unit that it's about. So basically, if you sort it by name, if you sort the folder by name, then you'll see everything related to, for example, topic 1 of biology in order, and then you can just find everything extremely easily. So yeah, those are my tips for online organization. Also, for your notes document, you should be pasting the syllabus content for each subject into that document. And this way you'll know exactly which syllabus outline points your teacher is covering as the course continues onwards. And you can also make notes relevant to those points that will become useful in your final exams. And yeah, I wrote down here just to add on to that, you can highlight or like cross off or do whatever you want with the official syllabus document just to like keep track of how the course is progressing, because a lot of teachers teach the course out of the order that they're listed in the syllabus. And basically the reason why teachers do this is because it's easier for students to understand when you're like learning everything related to one thing in order, except it's just like skipping the ones that are, okay, I feel like I explained that really badly. But sometimes, like, I think in the biology syllabus, it would go from, like, plant-related stuff, animal-related stuff, and then back to plant-related stuff. So in that case, like, the teacher might skip that animal-related chapter and talk about, like, plants all in one go. So for that reason, you should be highlighting stuff in that syllabus so you just keep track of what's going on and what the teacher is actually like teaching you. So just so you can like clock it in your brain. And yeah, as I said, throughout the year, you should be adding notes according to the syllabus into this document. If you don't really use online note systems, you can just use like paper, do whatever you feel comfortable with, but just make sure that you keep an organized system and like label exactly which sections that your paper notes are correlating to. And just to add on to that, I've seen like quite a few comments asking if I self-learn topics before the teacher teaches them. Personally, I don't do that. Like, I cannot be bothered to do that. I know some people do, but I feel like that's not the best use of your time. Like, I'd rather be consolidating what the teacher has taught me already and like increasing my understanding on that after the teacher introduced it to me. The teacher should know what like students find harder to understand, so they should be able to like teach it to you. You don't have to be learning everything yourself. Like, the teachers are there to help you. That's why you're paying your tuition. So yeah, I never really self-taught myself topics beforehand because I knew that the teacher would cover them. And if I did end up having questions, I would just ask it immediately, or I would wait till the next class to ask the teacher at the start of the class or whatever, or at the end of the lesson. But the point is, you probably don't have to be wasting your time trying to figure out a subject just to like impress your teacher or something, because it's just not the most necessary, you know? But you can do that if you want. Like, it's not the worst thing that you can do. Like, it's obviously better than being mentally checked out the entire school year. But if you're like stressed out and stuff, you don't have to be doing all that. Okay, and then my third tip is about finding resources. So for most of my courses, our school loaned us a textbook, and your school will probably do something similar or give you guys access to like an online version on an official website. But if you don't have textbooks, you can easily just find online copies just for free, like the PDF versions. I feel like those IGCSE based textbooks are quite helpful, but one caveat is that sometimes they include a lot of additional information that you don't actually need to know and like won't even get you extra marks on an exam. But those like pieces of information are just there to help you bridge the concepts in your head or help you understand it better. So like, you know, keep it in your head. So yeah, if you are using a textbook, just keep that in mind, because not everything there might be 100% completely relevant. This was also one of the key mistakes that I made at the start of my IGCSE year, because I thought that it was going to be so serious, and I was like, I need to know every single word in this textbook. And I definitely ended up wasting a lot of time just trying to memorize things that I did not even need to know for no reason. And I probably like have all of those things forgotten by now. So yeah, just keep that in mind. As for other resources, there are so many useful online resources that you can find. There's like just different IGCSE related websites. There's tutorial videos on YouTube. You can also look at forums and stuff. And yeah, these are like resources that you'll kind of accumulate throughout the school year, so you don't have to stress about finding them before the school year. But if you want to, you can just like get a head start on that and just figure out those resources that work best for you, because sometimes like YouTube videos might not really work for some people and whatnot. So yeah, just figure out what works for you. And another thing about getting tutors for IGCSE, I personally did not get a tutor throughout my 2 years of IGCSEs, but obviously I do know a lot of kids who do. But like personally, in my opinion, I don't think that it's completely necessary. Like, if you are really seriously struggling with a subject and you don't think your teacher can sufficiently help you, or you don't think your teacher is doing a good job explaining it to you and in a way that helps you understand it, you could consider getting a tutor. But yeah, ultimately, like, those things are kind of expensive. Like, there's AI out there as well that you could just like chat to it as if it's a tutor. Although there are some instances that AI makes mistakes. But yeah, I personally just use the internet as my tutor. So that's why I don't think that it's completely necessary, because I still was able to get like, you know, the top band of marks without having to have that external help. But yeah, if you're somebody that's really, really, really struggling with a subject and you just can't hold yourself accountable to self-study it or ask your teacher, then yeah, maybe get a tutor. But I don't think it's necessary like right off the bat. Like, you don't have to be sourcing all your local tutors before the school year starts, because it's really not that deep. Okay, and then my next point number 4, is that time management is key. Now, this is not as serious in IGCSE as it is in IB, but I feel like the transition between middle school to IGCSE, it might make it a little bit more difficult, because you're not really used to having that like intense, you know, final exams weighing over you. And since it is also a 2-year course, you have to be quite diligent and regularly reviewing the materials, especially the concepts that you're finding harder, or the concepts that are harder for you to retain in your brain. So my advice would be to create a good study schedule that works for you. You definitely do not have to be revising like 5 hours a day or anything crazy like that. But I say to keep a good study schedule, because there are going to be regular unit tests for every single subject. There's also going to be periods, like test periods, where a lot of subjects are having tests in the same week just throughout that 2-year course. So just having that study schedule will keep you a lot more organized. And yeah, just learn to not procrastinate, because all those unit tests are just training you and training your like studying abilities and stuff. And obviously this is going to help you a lot in the long run, because by the time you take your final exams, you're going to have like a 1-month long study break or something like that. And there you're meant to be like completely independent. You're not going to school, and you just have to like study all on your own. So I feel like throughout these 2 years, you got to train yourself to really like focus and lock in. And I know people around the world take the exams at different times. I personally took it in the May-June session. So the kids in Hong Kong, I'm pretty sure we all just had Easter break and then like a whole period of study leave just to study for the exams on our own. So that's why I say you have to train your brain to figure out a study schedule that works for you, and you know, train your brain to be able to retain information in a good way. And that leads me on to my 5th point, which is experimenting with different study habits throughout the year. So again, coming from middle school, since the tests really weren't that intense and you could kind of like play around more, and just like there isn't as much stress on it, so you may not have like completely prioritized figuring out how to study throughout those middle school years. So during these 2 years leading up to your final exam, you should be figuring out like what methods work the best for you. Different methods work differently for different people, so I can't like prescribe you with like one singular method that is going to work for everybody. But just some ideas include, for active learning, you can use techniques like summarization, self-quizzing yourself, teaching others. And also just for study habits in general, you should be practicing with past paper exam question styles formats, because those are like the teachers, when they're writing their unit test, they're probably going to use something similar. It would be best to like get familiar with the way IGCSE or the Cambridge board makes their questions, because you know there's always like a specific style examiner boards. And yeah, that's just going to be really helpful with familiarizing yourself with the format and the type of questions that are being asked, as well as what kind of answers they want to get from you. And then my next point is also figuring out if you do better in an environment studying with other people or studying with just alone. Personally, I think that I gravitate towards studying by myself more, although sometimes like I will study with peers depending on the subject. But yeah, one rule is that like I basically always only do maths alone, because I really cannot have like any distractions while doing maths. But like for some other subjects, like I'm fine studying that with a group of friends. So yeah, this just goes back to my main point that you should figure out what works for you in studying. And like if studying with friends doesn't work for you, don't force yourself to do that. And it's best to figure that out early so you don't end up wasting time later on with ineffective studying techniques. Okay, and finally, my sixth point to conclude this video is to remember that it's really not that deep. And I say this because I was one of those people entering IGCSEs and like being extremely stressed about everything. Like I always thought that everything was like such a big deal when in reality it wasn't that big of a deal. Like you're just starting high school, your teachers are gonna ease you into it. They know that it's like quite a big-ish transition between middle school and like something more serious like the IGCSEs. So they will be easing you into it, as I said, and they're going to be starting off with some really, really basic concepts. Like for biology, it was just like cells and stuff. And then for physics, it was just like basic motion, like really basic, like distance, speed, time, like that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's going to start really simple, and that's going to warm you up for like the style of questions and stuff, and like just the style of IGCSE in general. So that's why I say don't stress yourself out too much before IGCSE even starts. Your teachers know that it's going to be a transition period, and just remember that it's really not that deep. You should still focus on, you know, maintaining a healthy, balanced lifestyle, like stay active. You can still do all your extracurriculars and like hang out with your friends and maintain those relationships outside of school. Like starting IGCSE and starting high school in general does not mean that you just have to like shut everything out and like lock yourself in your room and study, because I can tell you one thing, that is just only going to lead to burnout. So I will say that like you should just do your best to keep that healthy, balanced lifestyle. Also with that, you should be prioritizing sleep. That is also something that I did not do in my IGCSE years, and I definitely regret that right now because I wish I got more sleep during those times. Sleep is obviously tremendously good for you. It is not cool to not get enough sleep. I know that that's like a common thing that like people want to brag about, like how little they sleep, but ultimately that's not a good thing because not sleeping enough harms your body in so many ways. And I'm obviously still such a hypocrite saying that, but yeah, I feel like I need to say that out loud to remind myself as well, and I'm telling all of you guys so that you guys are like cautious about that when you start your high school journey, because you want to be living a long, healthy life. And my final point is that IGCSE is ultimately a 2-year journey. You do not want to be like burning out at the start. That's really not necessary. And you want to be conditioning yourself so that you don't burn out at the end either. And yeah, that's why I say it's just like a 2-year marathon. Like it's not a sprint. And also I will just say, like, adding on to the it's not that deep point is that I'm in IB right now, and it is tremendously harder. Like the step from IGCSE to IB is tremendous. So that's why when I look back at my IGCSE years now, I'm just like, why did I do so much? Like I did not have to do all that, and I could have still, you know, achieved those grades that I did. Obviously, I'm grateful that I still ended up achieving those grades that I got, but like I didn't have to be like so crazy, you know? So yeah, that's just my reminder to all of you guys. Also, I'm like looking at the camera right now and I'm realizing that like I did not show you guys the stuff that I have here, but basically this was just my organization system during my IGCSE years. Because there were so many subjects, I color-coded my subjects by color, obviously. For example, here I used blue for physics, so this is like the practice workbook that our teacher gave us. I honestly did not like do that much of it, but I mean, I guess it was helpful. You can like get a workbook if you want for like the relevant subjects if you need it. But I basically just kept this huge binder folder for like all of the physical copies of like handouts and stuff that my teacher gave us because they weren't online. And then simultaneously I also had my online Google Drive folder with like the additional stuff as well as my online notes and like just stuff like that. And basically in this big binder I categorized it by like the chapter number, so I had everything all in one place. And you can see like these are all just handouts and stuff, and then when I go on to make my online notes I just refer back to this big fat binder. I've gotten rid of like my other subject folders, but I just wanted to keep this because it really represents like my hard work in physics, and I also like don't know if I'm gonna need it in IB or whatever. You don't have to copy it if like you're not the kind of person to do that, but I'm just somebody who, you know, likes to stay organized like that. So yeah, I would just like to show off my little organization tactics. And that's basically all I have to say for this IGCSE tips video. You can leave a comment if you have any questions, and as I said before, I also have plenty of videos about like subject specific tips and how I got A stars in those subjects, so you can go over and watch them if you want. And also I am selling my digital online notes folders, and you can DM me or email me for more information, but like You don't have to buy them if you don't want to, but like, I'm just saying they work for me. Also, can I just say, I just realized that I also wore this shirt in my opening my IGCSE grades reactions video, and it's low-key making me feel kind of nostalgic. But yeah, that is all I have to say again. And if you like this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to my channel for more, you know, like student life videos, tips, vlogs, motivation videos, whatever, and leave a comment if you have any questions or anything you want to add. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!